Okay, hello, and welcome to my read along of Art of War, Sun Tzu. So, I did start reading this book while I was watching the last season of Attack on Titan. I read a little bit at the end of the last few episodes, but then the season ended and I never finished it. Like, I never did separate videos finishing it, so I'm going to read this book now from the start in 3 parts. It has 13 chapters, so that's like 344 or 434 or whatever. Yes. 13 chapters total. So that the reason I decided to end up reading this was because obviously, if you watch my Attack on Titan reaction, you would know reactions. You would know that I had a lot of discussions with big parts of the fandom, and what it frustrated me that a lot of people were just discounting, like they wouldn't even talk because they just keep calling me names, one of them being ignorant because, oh, you don't understand how war works, um, especially when it comes to like, I don't think that, oh, that is right, and then they're like, no, but this is war, you can do whatever you want in war, and la la la. And then I was talking about morals, like I don't think that's morally correct, and people were literally laughing at me. Oh, this is war, where does morals come in? And I'm like, excuse me, have you ever heard of a war crime? And I mean, even in the real world, after a war is finished, people are held accountable for their war crimes often, as they should be, because sadly, sometimes war is inevitable when a discussion and negotiation and all that kind of nice things, when it doesn't work out. Someone once, I think, interpreted that as me saying war is necessary, which if I did ever say that, I don't think I ever said that, but if I did say that, no, that's not what I meant. It's just like sometimes it's unavoidable because, not all people are always willing to talk things out or um, find compromises before it gets to a point where it's war, and sadly, more often than not, true reasons for war are hidden from the people actually fighting in the war. So even if this side fighting that side, sometimes they don't even really know why they're fighting. That leader and that leader are telling them, oh, this is for this and for this, but in the end, really, it's just these, like, conflict here that could be easily resolved, but sometimes the people up here, they benefit from the constant war, and like, people can have financial benefit from war. It could be divide and conquer a kind of agenda if it's within a country, for example. um, in my country, the government gets away with a lot, like unfathomable amounts of corruption, because for many years they've kept us divided. Oh, this, and the people have been so busy fighting with each other that, not physically civil war, but in terms of culture war. No, not culture war. It's just like we've been so angry at each other, pointing and fingers and arguing about stuff that happened 30 years ago, and the government is just like benefiting because while we're so busy arguing with each other, they're packing away millions. So you see my point. All of this I'm mentioning because a war is obviously not easy to understand, and I never want to say that, but I think that it is not good of people to just laugh off me saying, oh, I don't agree with that, and then talking about morals, because factually war crimes do exist in our world, and for good reason. Because even if we do find ourselves not being able to avoid war, if we're gonna put up our fists and fight, we want it to be a fair fight, at least somewhat. We shouldn't tolerate things like targeting civilians. There are I haven't done like a little list. I haven't made like a little list of examples of war crimes. Torture or inhuman treatment, including biological experiments, willfully causing great suffering or serious injury to body or health. Like there obviously is very difficult to think about these things in the context of war, because you think obviously this is what war is, but it's not necessarily supposed to be. I think that let's see here, hostages, blah 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 blah. So I know that it's difficult, and I'm trying to see. Okay, I get why people were laughing because they don't think that morals are somehow in war, but to me it makes sense that there should be morals in war, because the war has to end at some point, right? And then you have to go on living your life, and everyone that was involved, the aftermath will have an effect on life after war. So if you committed XYZ war crimes, you know, slaughtering civilians, raping women, I feel like that is not a fair fight, right? If you think that anything should go, that is fine too. There's no law like gravity when it comes to law. War crimes, I mean the law regarding war crimes. But we have laws for good reason, so that we can live in a society, which after war we will need to live in a society. Even when it comes to war, is basically two societies fighting against each other for whatever reason. Anyway, I don't want to ramble, but the reason I started reading this book was so that I could gain a deeper understanding of war. If you think that I don't understand well enough, well then let's start here. It's not maybe the best place to start in your opinion, but I want to start here. Is the art of war. So that's where we'll start, and hopefully that will show that I'm willing to learn and discuss. And I don't think, if you're just going to discount my opinion because I dare to mention morals, there is I did write some notes a long time ago on, while I was rewatching Attack on Titan before the last season. I did write some notes on why I think I don't exactly remember what was the purpose, but I knew that in that discussion on that topic, I was talking about why it's important to remain moral as a society, in the sense that we shouldn't go around just killing each other because we want to. We shouldn't go around raping each other. We as a species want to survive. This is what it came down to, but I expanded on it more. But as a species, we want to survive, right? And we want to prosper, and we need to survive and prosper. We need to adapt to the changing times and whatever. And the best way to do that, and invent things and get all the good out of life that our human mind makes us capable of, inventions and everything. To get the best out of life, to not just survive but self-actualize ourselves, we can't be in a state of constant war. If you're in a state of constant war, you're just if you look at Maslow's hierarchy, if you're in constant war, you're always worried about survival, safety, food, sex. That is your base needs. But if we make rules, and we're not looking over our shoulder, a law do not murder for innocent people. If there's a law like that, we're not looking over our shoulders every other. We can live in a society. We can prosper more when we're not here in our base needs. Okay, so please go read the notes. I'll add the link to the description. But when all else fails and we have to go to war, when it's unavoidable, I think as far as possible, the war needs to be carried out morally. It has to, if it's gonna happen, it has to be soldier versus soldier, not let's go around them, murder their wives and rape them and then get them from behind, like, you know what I'm saying. There are, when you watch two boxers, or when you play a sport, which a lot of people, like in sports, I have a couple of friends who talk about sports as just being structured aggression and violence, which when you look at some sports, it is. And it might be a way for us as people to deal with that internal streak of ours. I don't know. Not a fucking psychiatrist. But when you're watching sports and someone cheats, do you feel like they won? If they cheat and they win, do you feel like that's fair? No. You can apply that on a larger scale. And if one side cheats and they win or they lose, the other side will not forget. And therefore, if you're going to win, it's better to win right. And I can go into more detail on that, but I don't want to ramble more. So what I'm going to do is tell you, watch Saga of Tanya the Evil. There's one series, 12 episodes, and then there's a movie. And that movie, at the end, describes that. Why we need to win right. And of course, as I've said, it's just, there's no law of gravity, law of war, but we make laws so that we can live in a society, so that the war can end as soon as possible and end right, so that it doesn't get perpetuated. Because if you win a war wrong, well, the movie will explain it. And I also have a short video talking about that quote specifically. So if you're not really interested in the whole movie and the whole series, you can try and just watch the video of it. Let me just quickly check here. I have it in my lists. So if you can see here, this is a video, Tanya movie extra discussion. So I will post the link to this in the description of this video. So I know that's a lot to take in, and I know I'm kind of all over the place. It's difficult when it's such an expansive topic, such as war and how to carry it out. It is complicated, I know, but I don't think that we're going to get anywhere if we're just calling each other names, and that is why I'm here today, to learn a little bit more about one person's opinion on the art of war. So let's begin with chapter 1, laying plans. Sun Tzu said, "The art of war is of vital importance to the state. It is a matter of life and death, a road either to safety or to ruin. Hence, it is a subject of inquiry which can on no account be neglected. The art of war, then, is governed by 5 constant factors, to be taken into account in one's deliberations when seeking to determine the conditions obtaining in the field." So, 5 constant factors. The art of war is governed by 5 constant factors. These are the moral law, heaven, earth, the commander, and the method and discipline. Method and discipline being 1. The moral law causes the people to be in complete accord with their ruler, so that they will follow him regardless of their lives, undismayed by any danger. Heaven signifies night and day, cold and heat, times and seasons. Okay. Earth comprises distances, great and small, danger and security, open ground and narrow passes, the chances of life and death. The commander stands for the virtues of wisdom, sincerity, benevolence, courage, and strictness. Benevolence? By method and discipline are to be understood the marshalling of the army in its proper subdivisions, the graduations of rank among the officers, the maintenance of roads by which supplies may reach the army, and the control of military expenditure. These 5 heads should be familiar to every general. He who knows them will be victorious. He who knows them not will fail. Therefore, in your deliberations, when seeking to determine the military conditions, let them be made the basis of comparison in the wise. Which of the 2 sovereigns is imbued with the moral law? That refers to the people to be in complete accord with their ruler, so that they will follow him regardless of their lives, undismayed by danger. Which of the 2 generals has most ability? With whom lie the advantages derived from heaven and earth? On which side is discipline most rigorously enforced? Which army is stronger? On which sides are officers and men more highly trained? In which army is there the greater constancy, both in reward and punishment? By means of these 7 considerations, I can forecast victory or defeat. The general that hearkens to my counsel and acts upon it will conquer. Let such a one be retained in command. The general that hearkens not to my counsel nor acts upon it will suffer defeat. Let such a one be dismissed. While heeding the profit of my counsel, avail yourself also of any helpful circumstances over and beyond the ordinary rules. According as circumstances are favorable, one should modify one's plans. So you should be able to modify your plans based on the circumstances. So that is pretty easy to understand. Adapt or die. We've been doing that for centuries, right? As people, animals, we adapt. Hence, when able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must seem inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. When far away, we must make him believe we are near. So, many ways to make war, I don't know. Hold out baits to entice the enemy. Feign disorder and crush him. That kind of makes me think about something from the anime. Hold out baits to entice the enemy. If he is secure at all points, be prepared for him. If he is superior in strength, evade him. If your opponent is of choleric temper, seek to irritate him. That happens a lot in fights in anime. They get the character worked up and emotional, and then he stops focusing on the fight, and it's easy to take advantage of them. Pretend to be weak, that he may grow arrogant. If he is taking his ease, give him no rest. If his forces are united, separate them. Divide and conquer. Attack him where he is unprepared, appear where you are not expected. These military devices leading to victory must not be divulged beforehand. Now the general who wins a battle makes many calculations in his temple ere the battle is fought. The general who loses a battle makes but few calculations beforehand. Thus do many calculations lead to victory, and few calculations to defeat. How much more? No calculation at all. It is by attention to this point that I can foresee who is likely to win or lose. So that's also very important, as opposed to making rash decisions, just minimal calculation. It's better to make many, and therefore that's why it's so important to have trustworthy counsel, and not just one person that should be calling the shots in the war, but rather a few, because I feel like in that kind of environment, like these strategy meetings with a couple of people that are obviously experienced, trustworthy, they hold each other accountable. And I think that they can make better, and they can challenge each other and discuss, and out of that a better plan will be formulated. I believe that is often the case. But then again, you also have these wonder people like freaking Erwin, who almost, they look like they're doing all of this by themselves. But Erwin always had Levi and Hans to talk to. I'm sure that he had many discussions before making any decisions, or at least most. And yeah, his strategies are quite brilliant. Sun Tzu said, "In the operations of war, where there are in the field 1,000 swift chariots, as many heavy chariots, and 100,000 mail-clad soldiers." Wait, let me start this again. Chapter 2, Waging War. So it first is laying the plans. It is important. You can't just bolster into a fight blindly. The more plans, the more calculations. I'm sure there's a limit to that as well. Like sometimes you need to take action. It depends on the situation. But if you can plan, strategize, key part in winning. Waging war. Sun Tzu said, "In the operations of war, where there are in the field 1,000 swift chariots, as many heavy chariots, and 100,000 mail-clad soldiers, with provisions enough to carry them 1,000 li, the expenditure at home and at the front, including entertainment of guests, small items such as glue and paint, and sums spent on chariots and armor will reach the total of 1,000 ounces of silver per day. Such is the cost of raising an army of 100,000 men." So, very expensive. "When you engage in actual fighting, if victory is long in coming, then men's weapons will grow dull and their ardor will be dampened. If you lay siege to a town, you will exhaust your strength. Again, if the campaign is protracted, the resources of the state will not be equal to the strain." Okay. "Now, when your weapons are dulled, your ardor damped, your strength exhausted, and your treasure spent, other chieftains will spring up to take advantage of your extremity. Then no man, however wise, will be able to avert the consequences that must ensure. Thus, though we have heard of stupid haste in war, cleverness has never been associated with long delays." Stupid haste in war. "There is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged warfare." So obviously, you don't want to just give up and have the other side tell you what to do. So you don't want to lose the war. You don't want to just wave the white flag. Like, you want to end the war, but in a powerful and in a powerful position, so that you can negotiate. Because the thing is, what happens at the end of the war? They negotiate, which could have prevented the war if done properly. But then everyone, to put it simply, everyone's stubborn and they're like, no. And then they fight, and then one side overpowers the other, and then they're forced to accept terms that previously. So either, usually there's more than one side, but let's just, for simplicity's sake, there's two sides. This side wants this side wants this, and then they don't want to settle, so they go to war and they fight, so that one of them can end in a position of power, and they can they have a better position then to negotiate, right? Because now they're weakened, they can't really say no anymore. So that's so you're gonna end where you're, if you could just from the beginning negotiate properly and meet a middle ground, that would be great. But if that's not possible, you fight. That's why what I mentioned in the beginning, by sometimes war is unavoidable. But even if you're on the winning side, you want to end the war as soon as possible, because your side is hurting too. You are losing people, and the men fighting, and even those who aren't fighting are sending their money to those who are fighting, so that they can fight longer. and you're weakening, they're weakening, and even if you're slightly ahead, both sides are weakening and losing a lot. So it's in everyone's best interest to end the war as soon as possible, right? But if you want to do it, and this comes back to the video that I mentioned from the Tanya movie, but you want to end it in a as right method as possible, because if you end it wrongly by cheating, like you would in a, let's say if someone cheats in a sports game, there will be consequences, and the war, I don't think, will really be over, because this side will hold on to that, the fact that you cheated, right? And then, yeah, the war will never really be over, because, I mean, you almost want to say, is war ever really over? But if you can't resolve it right, if you have a fight with someone and you kind of make up, but you don't really, that resentment builds and it will lead to another fight. And you might fight again about something else later. Fights happen. But if there's resentment, you're much more likely to fight about the same thing, and the fight will only get worse. So that's why, but this is my interpretation, of course, there is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged warfare. So we want to end it as soon as possible, and in my opinion, as right as possible. Refer to Tanya clip for why. It is only one who is thoroughly acquainted with the evils of war that can thoroughly understand the profitable way of carrying it on. The skillful soldier does... Wait, I don't understand that part. It is only one who is thoroughly acquainted with the evils of war that can understand the profitable way of carrying it on. So the country as a whole does not benefit of prolonged warfare, but there are individuals. Is that what refers to if individuals understand the evils of war, they can thoroughly understand the profitable way of carrying it on. So there are people, more so individuals rather than the whole country, that can get rich from warfare or profit from warfare. The skillful soldier does not raise a second levy, neither are his supply wagons loaded more than twice. Bring war material with you from home, but forage on the enemy. Thus the army will have food enough for its needs. Poverty of the state, exchequer, causes an army to be maintained by contributions from a distance. Contributing to maintain an army at a distance causes the people to be impoverished. On the other hand, the proximity of an army causes prices to go up, and high prices cause the people's substance to be drained away. When their substance is drained away, the peasantry will be afflicted by heavy exactions. With the loss of substance and exhaustion of strength, the homes of people will be stripped bare, and 3/10 of their income will be dissipated. While government expenses for broken chariots, worn-out horses, breastplates and helmets, bows and arrows, spears and shields, protective mantles, draught oxen and heavy wagons will amount to 4/10 of its total revenue. Hence, a wise general makes a point of foraging on the enemy. 1 cartload of the enemy's provisions is equivalent to 20 of one's own, and likewise a single pissful of his provender is equivalent to 20 from one's own store. Now, in order to kill the enemy, our men must be roused to anger, that there may be advantage from defeating the enemy. They must have their rewards. Therefore, in chariot fighting, when 10 or more chariots have been taken, those should be rewarded who took the first. Our own flags should be substituted for those of the enemy, and the chariots mingled and used in conjunction with ours. The captured soldiers should be kindly treated and kept. Kindly treated and kept. Fucking don't tell me, oh, morals in war, bah ha 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 ha. I'm sorry, but this man was in actual wars. If he can mention morals and... Yeah. And we can see in our own history what war crimes have led to and how people have been punished for them. But whatever, let's keep reading. The captured soldiers should be kindly treated and kept. This is called using the conquered foe to augment one's own strength. In war, then, let your great objective be victory, not lengthy campaigns. Thus, it may be known that so let's say in the beginning of the war, you're strong, you want to fight, instead of just wasting. If you beat their camp, if there's weapons you can forage, food you can forage, fine. Keep the soldiers that are alive, treat them well, don't torture them. Like you had your fight, they lost. There's no point in torturing them. Because I think that only corrupts your side. And it only weakens your position. But more on that later. Thus it may be known that the leader of armies is the arbiter of the people's fate, the man on whom it depends whether the nation shall be in peace or in peril. That is quite important there. The leader of armies is the arbiter of the people's fate, the man on whom it depends whether the nation shall be in peace or peril. And therefore, if one side perpetuates, if that man on who the arbiter of the people's fate, if that man ends up perpetuating the war, there is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged warfare, then the man on whom it depends whether the nation shall be in peace or in peril. So I don't know, it's just something to think about, right? The leader of armies is the arbiter of the people's fate. Every decision made by the leaders, it has everyone's lives. Not just the people fighting in the war, but the civilians at home. Just everyone's lives in their hands. But that, remember what I said earlier, it's not about just, if you don't want to just end like, oh, wave the flag and end the war and we subject. No, if it gets to that point of war, you fight it and you fight it right and you try and get a powerful position so that you have negotiating power, which ideally would have been solved before the war started. Negotiate. Chapter 3, Attack by Stratagem. So we had laying plans, waging war, and attacking by stratagem. So I think stratagem is like the strategies. Sun Tzu said, I have 2 paragraphs here starred. Sun Tzu said, in the practical art of war, the best thing of all is to take the enemy's country whole and intact. To shatter and destroy it is not good, or not so good. So too, it is better to recapture an army entire than to destroy it, to capture a regiment, a detachment, or a company entire than to destroy them. So, listen to me. I wish, the problem is with this stuff. The people needing to hear this, they're not here. But this is just so important for reference later, because people keep disagreeing with me, and that's fine, but they talk like I'm ridiculous for feeling differently than them. Like, oh, they are these geniuses and I'm this ignorant fool that knows nothing about war to think that this is better than this. And literally written by a fucking war person. I will read it again because it's that important. What are you doing, Nina? I don't know what she's doing. In the practical art of war, the best thing of all is to take the enemy's country whole and intact. To shatter and destroy it is not so good. So too, it is better to recapture an army entire than to destroy it. To capture a regiment, a detachment, or a company entire than to destroy them. Obviously, self-defense is different. Obviously, like you're going to have to fight. But it's better to limit the death and destruction. If you don't need to fucking bazooka, okay? Or especially when it comes to civilians. Don't fucking destroy the country that you're, I don't know, planning to take over. But anyway. Hence, to fight and conquer in all your battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. Yo, look at that crazy cat. Thus, the highest form of generalship is to balk the enemy's plans. The next best is to prevent the junction of the enemy's forces. The next in order is to attack the enemy's army in the field. And the worst policy of all is to besiege walled cities. Like, I'm sorry, but people saying that me disagreeing with because obviously you can feel however you want, and I'm allowed to feel however you want. But people talking to me about how ignorant and dumb I am for thinking, oh, I don't agree with a certain someone's actions, literally. I have it on good authority that my opinion is not so ignorant. Okay. The rule is not to besiege walled cities if it can possibly be avoided. The preparation of mantlets, movable shelters, and various implements of war will take up 3 whole months, and the piling up of mounds over against the walls will take 3 months more. What? The general, unable to control his irritation, will launch his men to the assault like swarming ants, with the results that 1/3 of his men are slain, while the town still remains untaken. Such are the disastrous effects of a siege. Therefore, the skillful leader subdues the enemy's troops without any fighting. He captures their cities without laying siege to them. He overthrows their kingdom without lengthy operations in the field. With his forces intact, he will dispute the mastery of the empire, and thus, without losing a man, his triumph will be complete. This is the method of attacking by stratagem. So, obviously, if you're watching this, you have to have watched Attack on Titan, right? So I'm gonna talk about spoilers every so often. But although the reasoning for why might not be exactly the same, the strategy, the point that there should be a strategy, and the better strategy is to bulk the enemy's plans, or next best is to prevent the junction of the enemy's forces. Next best is to attack the enemy's army in the field, and the worst policy is to besiege walled cities. So whether or not it's for the same reason, I still think that wasn't that my opinion. That isn't that because the main character, or I guess you could call him main character, goes against the Eren never. I wanted to read it first before I bring it relevant or make it relevant or talk about Attack on Titan. But it's just that this part makes me feel about. Do you remember when Eren has this whole strategy, his own strategy that he came up with in his head, or maybe he talked to Flock about it, I don't know. But he didn't talk to Hanji, he didn't talk to Mikasa or Armin, some of these smartest people. Armin. No, he essentially rushed into this plan of his, knowing that they would come to bail him out, and as a result they lost many people, including Sasha, and reaffirmed to the world why. Who was that guy that was doing that speech declaring the war? He basically proved to everyone there that guy doing that speech, talking about how bad they are, was right. That's what he proved to the world. I'm not saying he proved it in terms of it's factually correct. I'm saying his words were confirmed in that moment by Eren's actions which was a strategy he came up with without consulting his friends that led to the death of one of his friends and probably many more that we don't know. And it led to the death of many civilians, which is what the people will remember and why people were afraid of them in the first place. And I always found it so funny when people say, oh, but they declared war, of course he can go fight. One man declared war. Everyone else, that one man does not speak for everyone there. You know what I'm saying? So just because my president tomorrow, if he tomorrow decides to declare war with America, I don't think America has the right, and the American has the right to come slit my throat because my president declared war. I'm not a soldier. I'm not what? You know what I'm saying? But anyway, God. The general, unable to control his irritation, will launch his men to the assault like swarming ants, with the result that 1/3 of his men are slain, while while the town still remains untaken. Such are the disastrous effects of a siege. And I do think that siege, or whatever that was disastrous. It had disastrous effects. Hey, let me just quickly. What you doing? What you doing? What you doing? What you doing? Whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa. Oh, complainy. I call her Haley because her name's Nina, but I call her Haley because crying in Afrikaans means hail. To cry, te huil. And she's like always crying when I pick her up or something. And she's like, I don't want to do this. So I call her like Cryy, Haley. Because Haley is a real name. Anyway. So, control irritation, such are the disastrous effects of a siege. So another reason why, because a lot of people just think that that was his only option. Because, oh, he declared war. That was their only option. No. Who was it that they captured? They dug a hole and they captured that guy so that he can't transform. Like, there are ways to be sneaky about the war. Neutralize the threat before, you know what I'm saying? I wish I could remember, but there was someone that they dropped into a pit and essentially captured that way. And I'm pretty sure that was a plan that Armin and them came up with, which limited casualties. But okay, go kill the civilians. Therefore, the skillful leader subdues the enemy's troops without any fighting. The skillful leader subdues the enemy's troops, digs a hole and lets the men, big titan, fall in there so he can't transform. He captures their cities without laying siege to them. He overthrows their kingdom without lengthy operations in the field. Think about, for example, and this is going to be a spoiler with regards to slime, isekai. So I'll hold up my hand. If I drop my hand, I'll stop talking about slime isekai. So think of, for example, of Rimuru. When they were at war, they fought on the field, they defeated the leaders. Then he's like, okay, you're going to go lead that country now. You're going to be their new king. What are the civilians going to do? Their army fell. They have to listen now to Rimuru, a good leader that wages war properly with limited casualties. Because, I don't know, I think he does things right. He's also in an anime, but I know people are just going to be like, no, but that's not realistic. He's literally saying what to do in the book. A skillful leader subdues the enemy's troops without any fighting. He captures their cities without laying siege to them. He overthrows their kingdom without lengthy operations in the field. So, the book says so. I'm not saying the book is objectively right. I'm just saying this is from someone who was literally in a war where multiple people contributed to this book probably, but it was from people that waged war. So I'm just saying, if any opinion is valid, this opinion is valid to listen to, at least, right? To consider. Because I'm tired of people telling me, you can't have an opinion, you don't know anything. With his forces intact, he will dispute the mastery of the empire, and thus, without losing a man, his triumph will be complete. This is the method of attacking by stratagem. So obviously this is the ideal situation. Don't lose a single person, but what we're really aiming for here is limiting casualties, winning the war right. It is the rule in war, if our forces are 10 to the enemy's 1, to surround him, if 5 to 1, to attack him, if twice as numerous, to divide our army into 2. If equally matched, we can offer battle. If slightly inferior in numbers, we can avoid the enemy. If quite unequal in every way, we can flee from him. Hence, though an obstinate fight may be made by a small force, which Erwin was able to do, an obstinate fight, in the end it must be captured by the larger force. Now the general is the bulwark of the state. If the bulwark is complete at all points, the state will be strong. If the bulwark is defective, the state will be weak. There are 3 ways in which a ruler can bring a misfortune on his army. 3 ways, you say? 3 ways? There are 3 ways in which a ruler can bring misfortune on his army. Number 1, by commanding the army to advance or to retreat, being ignorant of the fact that it cannot obey. This is called hobbling the army. I don't know what that means. Commanding the army to advance or to retreat, being ignorant of the fact that it cannot obey. So like, not really sure what that means. 2, by attempting to govern an army in the same way as he administers a kingdom, being ignorant of the conditions which obtain in an army. This causes restlessness in the soldiers' minds. 3, by employing the officers of his army without discrimination through ignorance of the military principle of adaptation to circumstances. This shakes the confidence of the soldiers. But when the army is restless and distrustful, trouble is sure to come from the feudal princes, other feudal princes. This is simply bringing anarchy into the army and flinging victory away, so infighting, which does happen. Thus we may know that there are 5 essentials for victory. He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight. He will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces. He will win whose army is animated by the same spirit throughout all its ranks. He will win who prepared himself, waits to take the enemy unprepared. That doesn't, the enemy, the army, not civilians. He will win who has military capacity and is not interfered with by the sovereign. Interesting. Hence the saying, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. So that's quite interesting when it comes to Erwin's obsession with finding the truth. How important it is to know yourself, to know the enemy, which might lead to but sadly they were very much in the dark because of their history. The king keeping them in the dark, which I do not agree with. They didn't know about Titans and what they were and who they were and what happened in the past. History is really important. Like, how can you win if you don't even know why you're fighting? But I guess you can apply that in many different ways. Chapter 4, and this will be the last one for today, tactical dispositions. Sun Tzu said, the good fighters of old first put themselves beyond the possibility of defeat, and then waited for an opportunity of defeating the enemy. To secure ourselves against defeat lies in our own hands, but the opportunity of defeating the enemy is provided by the enemy himself. Thus the good fighter is able to secure himself against defeat, but cannot make certain of defeating the enemy. The good fighter is able to secure himself against defeat, but cannot make certain of defeating the enemy. Hence the saying, one may know how to conquer without being able to do it. Security against defeat implies defensive tactics. Ability to defeat the enemy means taking the offensive. Standing on the defensive indicates insufficient strength. Attacking a superabundance of strength. The general who is skilled in defense hides in the most secret recesses of the earth. He who is skilled in attack flashes forth from the topmost heights of heaven. Thus, on the one hand, we have ability to protect ourselves. On the other hand, a victory that is complete. To see victory only when it is within the ken of the common herd is not the acme of excellence. Neither is the acme of excellence if you fight and conquer and the whole empire says, well done. To lift an autumn hair is no sign of great strength. To see the sun and moon is no sign of sharp sight. To hear the noise of thunder is no sign of a quick ear. What the ancients called a clever fighter is one who not only wins, but excels in winning with ease. Could you say even maybe winning right? Winning in the right way. Refer to Tanya video and what Tanya told the guy who punched the mirror. Please go watch that video. Please go watch that series and that movie. It's very good. One of my favorites. Depending on the ending of Attack on Titan, I might put Tanya above Attack on Titan, but it all depends. What the ancients called a clever fighter is one who not only wins, but excels in winning with ease. Hence his victories bring him neither reputation for wisdom nor credit for courage. He wins his battles by making no mistakes. Making no mistakes is what establishes the certainty of victory, for it means conquering an enemy that is already defeated. Hence the skillful fighter puts himself into a position which makes defeat impossible and does not miss the moment for defeating the enemy. Thus it is that in war, the victorious strategist only seeks battle after victory has been won, whereas he who is destined to defeat first fights and afterwards looks for victory. The consummate leader cultivates the moral law and strictly adheres to method and discipline. Thus, it is in his power to control success. In respect of military method, we have firstly measurement, secondly estimation of quantity, thirdly calculation, fourthly balancing of chances, fifthly victory. Measurement owes its existence to earth, estimation of quantity to measurement, calculation to estimation of quantity, balancing of chances to calculation, and victory to balancing of chances. A victorious army opposed to a routed one is a pound's weight placed in the scale against a single grain. A victorious army opposed to a routed one is a pound's weight placed in the scale against a single grain. The onrush of a conquering force is like the bursting of pent-up waters into a chasm 1,000 fathoms deep. Well, I liked parts of this chapter. Chapter 4 was quite short. Like, there was stuff that stood out to me, but I feel like there's many things that I will kind of need to decipher or go read decipherings of the text. We know that these texts haven't translated, so each translation has may have different, leanings. But I still feel like there's much value to be had from reading this book and understanding possibly that war is not just about fucking blasting through everyone and anything, doing whatever the fuck you want, killing civilians, blah 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 blah. Like, it also says things that I think are probably impossible. Making no mistakes. But that is the ideal. You know, it's something to be strived for. Sure, we're going to make mistakes, but there are mistakes you can afford to make. And then there are just like, you really... And at the end of the day, it's all just fiction, Attack on Titan, and we should be able to talk about, agree or disagree with the actions of the characters without resorting to calling each other names. We will learn more that way. So, yeah, I think I learned a lot. My favorite chapter is chapter 3, that first page, page 9 in my book, about... In the practical art of war, the best thing of all is to take the enemy's country whole and intact. To shatter and destroy it is not so good. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. The rule is not to besiege... this is my favorite part. The highest form of generalship is to balk the enemy's plan. If that's not possible, the next best is to prevent the junction of the enemy's forces. The next in order is to attack the enemy's army in the field. And the worst policy of all is to besiege walled cities. Walled cities. The rule is not to besiege walled cities if it can possibly be avoided. Which I believe in the show could have easily been avoided if there was less infighting and more communication. Strategizing. Maybe a balance between Aaron's goals and the rest of them. You know what I'm saying? I don't want people to be like this, defensive, because like I'm saying, maybe Aaron had like some truth to his, some like value in his strategy, but I just think that he was like, and if he just had brought it to the people that had been with him from the start, that had helped him survive all this time, I feel like it would have resulted in a much better strategy in the end. But that's just me. Okay, so I read last time up to chapter 7, so I'm just gonna do this from next time. We'll do chapter 5, 6, 7, and 8 maybe. We'll see. But thank you for reading with me, and I'll see you next week around the same day for the next chapter, and then there's one more week where I'll do last 3 chapters, and then the week after it'll be Attack on Titan. Okay, so I'll see you guys next week. Bye.